speeches was the need of the internationalization. I think that was coming from DG's speech, and the capacitating of the quality assurance staff. We had the speech from the board chair, who also emphasized on collaboration and knowledge exchange as key to enhancing higher education quality. We also had a speech from the SAQAN president, and the emphasis was on increased membership and the journal, which was successfully launched. Then we also had the speech from the guest of honor, who also emphasized on regional scholarships, the SADC University of Transformation, and collaborations in research. From the speeches, I wish to invite the audience, if you were able to note one or two recommendations that we have to take note of, or what we are going to take home with us. We have the mics in the audience. Yes, we.
Thank you, sir. I think mine is not necessarily drawing my contribution from the speeches, but I think from the overall activity. Well, I feel that we've drawn a lot of wealth of knowledge as participants. That is worth recognizing, like I did submit yesterday to the DG, that it would be nice to recognize this by a factor of a certificate for what we've covered, just to make sure that we have that recognition. I think that would work out better, having HER logo and SAQAN. I think that would be something that would take home with. I think that was my submission. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. There is a hand here. Please be clear as to what you want us to take home, because we are taking note.
I think what I got in terms of this, the different speeches is that for SAQAN to push Articles 7 and 8 of the African Protocol.
Okay.
I remember that vividly, but also to dedicate, be it a week or a month, towards quality in SADC. Really focus on activities to remind, everybody about quality assurance in higher education. Yeah, I think that is what I can remember. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, SAQAN, we need. Yes, there's a hand. Doc, you can go ahead.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I think there's been a mention of some important documents. And from experience, many times people talk about those documents, but some have heard about them, they've never opened them or got them. So I'm volunteering that I will share with the Secretariat. I will share the Addis Convention. I will share the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, which is one thing which mostly worries me, that when you ask, you say, what is happening then in universities when our ministers met at continental level to have that document? I will also share maybe one or two other, the Dakar, Senegal declaration. I don't know whom I should share with, maybe, so that they can then be shared with everybody who attended. If the original document for the African standards and guidelines is not there too, I think I'm also prepared to share together with those documents. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll be able to share with you our contacts for sharing of those documents. Thank you very much. There's a hand.
Good morning, everyone. Before I make my submission as to what took place yesterday, I would just want to find out if this host of information that we are receiving will be shared to each one of us in some way using technology. We tried to take some notes, but would have been missing some details. We will appreciate if there can be a way in which we can receive the mammoth of information that we were receiving throughout this conference. Coming to what I observed yesterday, it has to do with contextualization of quality assurance from Zimbabwean perspective, which was dubbed as Education 5.0. By definition, they went to call it as heritage-based philosophy. I was excited to hear about a heritage-based philosophy in application. What it entails to me is that there are two types of degrees that we can talk about. A technical degree, or we can talk about a liberal arts degree. There is a difference between a technical degree and liberal arts degree, whereby a technical degree is specific as to the industry it is based in, whereas a liberal arts degree is going to include much more in the training of students than the industry-based one. If we are to talk about a technical degree, it means that we would have a lot of general courses because we want our students to be thinking outside the box. I want to assume that we are in agreement what is happening in Zimbabwe, where they have a heritage-based philosophy. In some cases, it is going to be called Afrocentrism, or Afrocentric degree, which wants to indigenize, which wants to contextualize the degree according to the resources, according to the environment we are operating in. As we go home, maybe the take home will be with the HEAs. Won't it be disturbing you to find that at Zambian Christian University, we are offering to accountant students a degree which looks at Christianity? The essence is to maintain a heritage-based philosophy. We are also going with this, and in order that it can be a reality, we are incorporating many other streams to particular trainings that is going on. We know that we are training a nurse, but we are going to expose a nurse to accounting because we know that the world is divergent. So is that what we can take home, that we are encouraging us to believe that a liberal arts degree is better and it will not be queried when we implement it? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. It's a submission and a question. What do you wish should be recommended for, okay? Okay, All right, thanks. We take note of that. Do we have any other hand from... yes. We can have the mic here.
Okay, thank you, colleagues. My comment is directly related to what this colleague just said. I also found that Education 5.0 of Zimbabwe is quite interesting. And if you recall, when I spoke at the journal launch, we talked about the nature of the university, being scholastic or Socratic, or having that apprenticeship model. But the Zimbabweans have taken that a step further to this industrialization, commercial kind of approach, which is very interesting. But I think it is important that we remember that the university has this other higher role as well. It can't just be the technical industrial part. So I would submit, and I come from the humanities originally, so I would submit that we should not forget the nature of the university, and that liberal arts education, which allows us to do that Socratic questioning, critiquing kind of, have that stance. We have that role to play as higher education in society as well. So just to balance it out, to not just go now for the technical, commercial, and it's important, I agree, but to remember the role of the university in other ways as well.
Okay. Thank you very much for that submission. We note. I've seen, we seem to remember a lot of recommendations, but I'll try to run session by session so that we account for it in that order. Thank you so much for those submissions. Unless there's any other submission. Okay, so we went to the mid-morning on the first day where we had goodwill messages, and before the goodwill messages, I think we also had 2 trophies that came in to SAQAN for outstanding performance, which is a good one. They were presented to SAQAN. Then we had goodwill messages from the African Network and from the International Network for Quality Assurance Agencies. I think we didn't have much that was recommended from the goodwill messages, unless somebody remembers something. What I have here, they were wishing us a good conference. Did anyone pick a recommendation from the goodwill messages? I think one was read yesterday. Okay, the plenary session. In the plenary session, the first day, that was in the afternoon, we had the presentations, implementation of African standards and guidelines in higher education, a case of Zimbabwe. And then we also had a presentation from Dr. Britta, benchmarking the South African CHE standards with the African standards and guidelines. What we took note from there is that there are a number of modes we can take to align our national standards to the African standards and guidelines. The Zimbabwean model and the South African model, they took opposite approaches, but they still ended up harmonizing the standards, which was recommended. Either way, what is important is we need to have our standards harmonized. However, did the audience have any recommendations on these 2 presentations? We remember when Professor talked about the 13 standards, and Zimbabwe has enhanced them to 17 standards. How South Africa developed standards, then they benchmarked with the African standards and guidelines. Okay. Then the next sessions, we had to go into 2 groups, which were 2 parallel sessions. And we had presentations. Some of the presentations were not made. People send apologies, but we had presentations. And the presentations we had in the first, in Group A, I think this is the part that has been summarized, the Education 5.0 and the recommendation from there. Then we had, I think, one thing that was presented by the President, which strongly indicated the need for learning programs to be accredited. I think we remember the common saying that was indicated, which is an accredited learning program mostly gives confidence. Madam Betha, you want to say it? There's a way you picked it.
From the President's presentation, we got the key take-home message to say an accredited learning program is a trusted program. Thank you.
Very true. And that empowers us to have our learning programs accredited as institutions. And we thought that was a very important recommendation. However, from the presentation, that was the presentations that were made in the parallel session in Room A, do we have any recommendations that the audience took note that you would want us to incorporate in our, what did we take home? Let me put them together, Group A and Group B, because they were happening at the same time. In Group B, we had establishing internal quality assurance in higher education institutions, a worthwhile experience for enhancing quality culture by Carlos. We have a hand. Here, Dr. Kafula.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I think for me, what I really picked up was we had 2 presenters from, just picking up from South African scenario on insurance. The 2 universities had different approaches in terms of how they deal with robots, of course, but very different in terms of the insurance process. But then my concern was in an event where there is a discrepancy in terms of how you apply your internal quality assurance, do you see that as a point of compromise in terms of how you push for quality, within the internal systems? So when you study the two approaches to internal quality assurance for the 2 universities, there was that discrepancy. Is it possible to kind of come up with a model that speaks to, almost a standard or minimum standards that they could use in terms of the approaches? Because I think the 2 approaches were quite different. But speaking obviously to key fundamental areas and things like that. So my feeling is, for purposes of warranting quality assurance, could we have minimum, standards that speak to the overall goal or something like that? I think that's basically my observation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kafula. Okay. There is a hand at the back.
Yeah, on Group B. The data that were given really made my message is that, especially that which came from during reactions to the presentations, what struck me most is that when you get home, really, we shouldn't look at at it from the point of view where we say who is qualified in the internal quality assurance arrangement, or what qualification is there. Rather, we should look at what competence is needed for the people to deliver in the quality assurance, internal quality assurances. So that if those competences are not there, then maybe we speak in terms of capacity building them for the required skills and competence. Really, that's a take-home message. One of them that I'll really take as I get back home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to urge the audience. There are some presentations that were made when people were quite hungry and wanting to go for lunch, and you didn't ask any questions. So this is the opportunity to raise those burning things that you want to recommend about those presentations. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Sometimes I want to limit putting up my hand because I'll be checking other people who haven't said anything. But from Carlos' paper, which you talked about, I think he highlighted that there's need for training on quality assurance issues. And then he also highlighted resistance to change and highlighted limited resources. So what I'm saying and advising the quality assurance personnel in institutions is that there will continue to be a blame game. The leaders will say that we can't see what you are doing for us to warrant giving you more manpower and also giving you a budget. So may I kindly advise that within the institutional strategic plan, you should make sure that quality assurance matters are embedded in each and every objective of the strategic plan. Because now it will justify what are you going to do where we need to give you a budget in order to do certain things. Number two, are you even known and felt? Those things are key, because when you go there, they ask you the leadership. So what have you done so far? Nothing, because they are not giving us money. We are few, but start with where you are. Do 3 things, like I said yesterday, and then try to see how you can start being seen and heard in the institution. Your visibility, your presence should be heard and seen and felt in the institution. That's when then you go to the leadership for support. Unfortunately too, I'm sorry, I'm just being frank, our leaders, institutional leaders, have got 4-year, 5-year terms. Some can have repeated terms for 8 years. But our major challenge is their understanding of quality assurance is very limited. From the researches we have done and the literature available, you find that most of the institutions are doing quality assurance for compliance to the external body. That's why they even go and get pieces of equipment for accreditation, which they then return upon getting what? Accreditation. They've also seen a loophole within the regulatory bodies that once they are accredited, maybe they should go back and say, show us those medical pieces of equipment which we use to accredit you for the program. But in terms of resources, we also need a resource mobilization strategy at institutional level and even at our different sectional levels, because those are the things that we can show goodwill. And so with that lack of full knowledge of quality assurance in our leadership, there's need for training the leaders. Last time, Ruforum organized a platform where the vice chancellors, registrars, deans, and directors were trained in Namibia. I'm happy to say I was part of the facilitators. And I wish the same could be done here. Because honestly, once the leaders do not buy into quality assurance, if they don't really support it and only support it in as far as program accreditation and satisfying the regulatory bodies without necessarily building the quality culture and the real foundation for quality assurance in the institutions, we are still far from it. The good things about quality assurance, the savings, the early detection, the list is long. They won't have it. Just the last one. In terms of quality assurance, we need a quality management system which is robust, but do they even know how they can go about building that robust quality management system? We also need certain personnel in there. People who are fast thinkers, creators, innovators, initiators, people who are not shy, people who are normally with integrity, because once you do double standards, you are doing yourself a disservice. People who are good in research methods, ICT, because you need to do a lot of data collection, a lot of data analysis, so that people make decisions based on facts and based on data, not perceptions, not assumptions, not opinions. Let me stop here.
Thank you so much, Doc. There's a hand. Okay, we can start with this one. I'll come to you. Yes, we can start with.
Good morning, and thank you so much. So for me, my take home is quality assurance should not be limited to a department or a unit. For every functional unit or department in higher education, quality assurance should be embedded in that. For us to achieve what we want to achieve, which is the ultimate goal of quality assurance, it's very critical that everybody in this process chain should be involved. If not, it will only be expected at a certain level, but without the people at the bottom or the other functional units knowing what is supposed to be done. My submission, thanks.
Thank you very much. There was a hand, Madam. I'm coming to you,
Good
sir.
morning. Yeah, that's me. My take home is related to AI and how universities can embrace it, especially to do with student studies. I got comments from the audience because the presenter did not present a paper. So what I take home is that we should embrace AI, but probably provide a guideline to students on how they can use it. For example, I am a student in an institution in Switzerland, and we were trained on how to use AI because next October, ChatGPT is going to be 5 times smarter than a human being. So these things are not going to go away. So just to share what I experienced in my study, we use it as a resource for research. So we are guided on how to use it without having to pretty much let it write for you. But that's what we are seeing our students doing. So if we can set a standard and as trainers, we know how to supervise and guide our students, they can use it, but we can show them how to use it. Probably set a standard so that they don't abuse it and we don't end up passing people who didn't do the work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Tambatamba, I'll come to you. There was a hand that came earlier.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
It's just a struggle that I have in the way we are defining quality assurance. We tend to be up there we are not going to our traditional sources. As Africans, the way we understand quality assurance, if you look at traditional schools, in terms of rites of passage, where do we locate that quality as Africans? And then we blend that with what we are talking about. I've not heard so far in terms of traditional definitions of quality assurance. Because for me, the school system must arise from an African context. And we trace that quality from that traditional, and then we blend that with modernity, modern ways of looking at quality assurance. So that is the problem I'm raising. Nobody has spoken about quality assurance in an African context, something that would rise from the womb of Africa, and something that grows and blends with modernity. That is a struggle. I'm just raising a struggle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Tambatamba, I'll come to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. And I think one of the papers that struck me was presented in Group B, which related to the well-being of the lecturers. I think this is something that we normally ignore. So this paper brought it to the fore that, the workload in most of these universities is really taking its toll on the members of staff, and as such, quality is also affected. So I think it's important that, we also relate to such things as the well-being of the lecturers, see what kind of workloads that can be taken up. But of course, I know there was a bit of controversy over the same presentation regarding moonlighting, that the lecturers are also bringing it upon themselves because they go outside their institution and to try and bring in a bit more resources, and then they get overloaded. But I think the well-being of staff, be it lecturers or even support staff, I think is important. It impacts on the quality, so we really need to pay attention to it as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tambatamba. There was a hand.
Thank you, colleagues. I think I take home a number of things which are a summary of what people presented. The first thing is that I think there is need for us to attach sincerity and also honest to what we do as universities. We know the Quality Assurance Directorate is the engine of a university. But this is a directorate which is underfunded, understaffed. And we want is to produce or to give us a quality report which lacks quality and merit. I think so because we are talking to each other here. Many of the decision makers are absent. The Quality Directorate is going to make recommendations which will be read and backed. This is where we bring higher education. The Directorate of Quality Assurance. How many checkups, prompt checkups, do we do in these universities? In order for us to see if quality indeed is being followed. If we have planned checkups, this is why we have cosmetic quality assurance provided to us. Because the university is going to hire staff, parade the staff, and say these are the people who teach the courses. Meanwhile, they're not even there. They're not even on the payroll of the university. Apart from that, how many times do we go to public universities? If I talk of private, I'll be biased, both public and private, to ensure that what we saw when we were registering this university is what is there, as it has been echoed by some colleagues.
Okay.
As universities, we prepare what higher education wants when they want to come and see us. Meaning that we also have a role as higher education university to provide prompt checkups so that quality is continued before our checkup and after our checkups. When we do that, we shall make the universities strive to be sincere and provide quality education, which we are preaching for here. Lastly, I think it is also important that when we come up with recommendations, we should be able to attach guidelines to every university through the authority, higher education authority, so that after this meeting and the recommendations, feedback should go to the sponsors of this gathering, who are the universities, to say these are the measures which we agreed upon, and as universities, we have to follow this and this and this. So that when the higher education can do the prompt checkups, they should be able to say, there is this communication, how have you done about this? When we do that, we shall be using quality outside the quality assured time frame. And then, in my view, quality will be achieved in one or the other. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a hand next to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up with the discussion to do with the loading of lecturers in the institutions of learning. I know there was this issue brought up some serious debate in Group B, but what I saw through in those debates is that it depended on from which standpoint you were speaking. If you are speaking from the point of view of the proprietors of the institutions of learning, or from public universities, or from the universities, learning institutions which have huge numbers of students, then you see that you have moderated hours for lecturers. And the issue may not seem to be that big. And those are the cases where you may find cases of moonlighting. But from smaller universities, where numbers are a challenge, you'll find that the overload is real, and it impacts on quality. So all I wanted to clarify is it depends from which standpoint you are seeing the problem. The problem is very real. There are so many private universities that are struggling with numbers of students, and as a result, there is this real problem of overload of lecturers, not only with teaching, carrying on with their load of teaching, but you find that they are also involved in so many other equally important activities within the institutions of learning, to do with examinations, to do with invigilation, to do with the supervision of students who are defending their research work, all these things, and yet the same people also need to fulfill their duties in lecturing. So the problem is real, and it impacts on the quality of education. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we can take the hand there. We are pushing against time, so I'll take a few hands. Okay.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. I think mine is on the contextualization of quality assurance. We did hear some case studies within the region, and we're also told that higher education is not supposed to be a consumer service. This is where quality assurance comes in. It's supposed to help us detect 40 products within our education systems, within our higher education systems, but then there are feedback mechanisms that I feel we need to focus on, internal and external. One that I can highlight on the internal feedback mechanisms is the student evaluation, course evaluations. I think this is meant to help strengthen how these courses are offered, how these programs are run, to produce a graduate that we want to see. But what I've seen in most of our higher learning institutions that it is just an academic exercise, where some students do it so that they just get to clear a course, others feel they get intimidated. So my recommendation is that let's take keen interest and strengthen the student feedback mechanism. On the external evaluation or feedback, we have the employers. We need to establish ways of getting feedback to the higher or to the training institutions from the employers. Once this student is a graduate, has graduated, and now he's working here or there, if there are things that we missed during the training, and now the qualification has been issued to this graduate, we've heard of reports where employers are complaining about the quality of graduates they're receiving, even how they are performing. So I think we need to now establish feedback mechanisms that should inform the universities to say, this field, this is what you produced, and these are the complaints from the employers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have, okay, that will be the last hand, but I have two more hands. Mr. Thomas Banda.
Thank you so much. Listening to the papers that were being presented, and also our approach to the conference, one of the things that was mentioned is that we are on a journey of transformation. And real transformation can never happen when we approach it in the way that we are approaching it. If you count the number of vice chancellors in here, probably there are very, very few. So if we want to approach change in the way that we want to do it, I think it is high time that both the regulator, the quality assurance bodies focuses on the top. If you have to have this in the strategy, it can never go in the strategy if it is not beginning from the top. Major change initiatives have happened because the leadership has taken a keen interest. The complaints that we may be having, we'll be having the complaints because there is no drive from the leadership. I can give an example of a farmer who is growing tomatoes. This is a very simple example. Tomato is a very delicate fruit. If you want to produce quality tomatoes, from the beginning the farmer needs to know, the owner of the farm needs to know, one, I need to provide the chemicals. I need my people to know how to identify the flaws that are going to make this crop not to be of that quality. Those that are doing the outgrower schemes, they train the farmer. They don't just train the workers, they train the farmer. But our approach, I've attended 2 workshops in Zambia in relation to quality assurance. And in these all workshops, there were very few vice chancellors. And I've been saying, so are we just, singing a song to the masses? And then the decision makers are not getting this. So no matter how much, if you come to me and I'm not attending this workshop, and you come to me, this is what they are saying, they have not said it to me, it's not important. Because what is not taken to the head, this is the principle that I take. If you as a regulator do not come to me as a vice chancellor, you deal with somebody under me somewhere there, they are the ones you call for the workshop. This is an exercise that you just want to fulfill. You do not want to achieve. The moment we change our strategy to transform, then we are going to achieve the quality that we, because it will start from the head. And everyone will know what they are doing. But right now, there is so much that we can, all the things that we are looking at are just symptoms of the leadership, failure of leadership to drive quality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Banda. Before we go to that hand, there was a hand here. It came. This hand came earlier. Then that will be the last hand here. Before the thought is lost.
Yeah, thank you very much. A special good morning to everyone, and a special appreciation to the organizers and indeed all the presenters. While standing on the earlier submissions, I'll try to the extent possible not to repeat anything and to be brief and to the point. The first one that I took note of, or that I took as important, is the role of data analytics in improving quality or maintaining the quality that we so much crave for. I think that was one of the presentations that I appreciated, in that we need to base our decisions on data. The next one is, we spoke to the roles of regulatory authorities within the space of quality assurance or program accreditation. And what came out strong is that those that are currently matched are moving towards unpacking, unmatching or delinking or whatever. And those that are independent, standing alone, are moving towards merging. So it seems we are confused, and we are perhaps in the process confusing ourselves. But most important, then comes the element of contextualizing, or the contextualization of all that. So we need to look, not necessarily to look at what other countries, of course we can learn from them, but our own setup and context is what should inform those decisions, and not just to say country X is doing that, so let's do that. So there are many other variables that are at play, and even within one institution where all these are centralized in one entity, there are times that the units or the department within this unit are also duplicating processes and systems. So hence the need to streamline the processes thoroughly in order not to frustrate the institutions. Fast forward, I need to perhaps also link or appreciate the fact that there was a submission at this conference that spoke to the true measure of quality of higher education in Africa may be determined by the quality of the average African out there in the streets. The quality of life may be a true measure of the quality of the higher education that we are providing, or perhaps guarding, or perhaps, regulating as regulators and so on in our various roles. And we should appreciate that and work towards having the ideal average quality of life that comes through the education or the higher education that we provide as Africans. That being the case, I wanted also to talk to an aspect that might not be so comfortable to us, but an aspect worth talking about, and that is perhaps defining again the role of this platform, the extent to which we criticize or critique one another in terms of the intent of our gathering. I may come as a presenter to say, let me go share my experience, not necessarily submitting an academic or a scientific paper, but bringing what I do, irrespective. Then I'm being pointed to the philosophies, all kinds of things that discourages me from participating the next time. So that my lived experience to a degree will then be perhaps, what is the word? I'll be perhaps demoralized or destroyed to the extent of not coming to or looking forward to the next workshop. So there is a need to to balance the criticism or whatever it is, or the recommendations that, and what I picked up, this is again uncomfortable perhaps, the presentations here were not necessarily research proposals. And at times the comments that we provided is as if we have a student or perhaps a person submitting a research proposal, of which for some it was already a done and dusted perhaps research, just communicating the findings, yet we were grilling one another on methodologies, on conceptual frameworks and all kinds of things. And I think it's something that we need to look at and perhaps guide ourselves at the level of SAQAN or the organizing committees of future conferences to come. In my final submission, I want to talk to quality as time management also. Sticking to time from the word go and all the way to the last event, sticking to time in terms of programming of the various sessions and coordinating such that the sessions run in parallel and end in parallel, so that perhaps you identified an issue of interest in room B vis-a-vis an issue of interest in room A. But our current run of things, or the way we implemented them, was such that one was to a certain extent forced to remain in one room. So these are recommendations for future. I hope it's not being seen as a criticism of any kind. I really appreciate our stay, and I so submit.
Thank you so much for that submission. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. It's difficult to speak when you are speaking as the last speaker. But the point now is I'm so excited, that, this conference brought, our agencies, the external, quality assurance, councils and, the internal quality assurance units. And we seem to be talking about the same thing. It's quite heartening. We get to know each other. We get to know our operations, and that's a plus. Number two, I'm just to respond to the fear that I hear from yesterday that, people seem to worry about quality assurance when the agents are coming. I think there's a need for us to change, the way we do it. Let it be a culture. Let it be something that we do for ourselves, not for the councils. Remember, we are worried about our brands. So let us work on enhancing our own, systems. And when the agents are coming, they are doing it, just to ascertain that we are doing it. Just the way we do it within our institutions. The point that I'm trying to make here is, let us have a change in the culture of quality assurance within our institutions. Let it be part of every unit. I'm not trying to present again on the paper that we presented, but let it be part of every activity that we do at our institutions. And once that culture is accepted, then we won't worry about whether they are coming today or tomorrow. Or even if they came yesterday, they can even come today and tomorrow. And then we are still doing what we do. They will see us doing what we do every day. So I think let us work on that change in culture. And then we will be there.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was the Jericho. 1 minute, please. 1 minute, please, Jericho.
Thank you so much. For me, it's just the approach that I saw from South Africa as well as from Zimbabwe. They have defined to some extent their quality assurance policy of some sort. I know the Department of Higher Education in South Africa has that, and also the Zimbabwean case where they're talking about Education 5.0. The question is, for Zambia, for others, do we have a policy direction in terms of quality assurance, especially at the ministry level? Do we have something like that? I know HA has got standards, but do we have a policy? And then does each institution drive from that particular policy and make their own contextualized policies that are around quality assurance in each particular institution. I think that would be very helpful for us going forward. Lastly, I like the way the University of Johannesburg, that was Professor Kreti and Gloria, the way they interrogate the qualifications that they're producing. So they indicated the fact that from year 1 to year 4, faculty members sit down to analyze the program to say, is it really producing the quality we want at the end of the day? And is the modules, the programs really talking to each other? I think that's one of the ways that, institutions can pick up to really interrogate their qualifications in terms of quality. They should at least interrogate them to find out, will they produce really what industry wants? That's a feedback mechanism that they can get. And they can also approach other mechanisms that are being done. For instance, in the Zambian case, we have got the core learning elements for programs. We also have something that we're producing as Zambia Qualification Authority. They are called National Occupational Standards. They're very similar to what Dr. Zawadi from CHE had pointed out. So these occupational standards really help to bring feedback between industry and those that are training in terms of what they really are going to produce. Is it meeting what is needed in the industry? I think those are my few statements. Thank you so much.
Jericho, thank you very much. Council, Madam Tafuna, would you summarize the recommendations in just a few minutes?
Let's try to move close to the end. We are closely eating into the time of of our excursion, and it will be difficult because it's externally arranged. We shouldn't. Can we move close to?
Okay. Now this is the Madam Tafuna. Kindly just summarize the submissions.
Thank you very much. Just to thank everyone for the feedback we've received. As your rapporteurs, will summarize all the information provided, but perhaps a few takeaways from this session. The session acknowledged that there was low quality assurance in institutions or in the units, and the solution was to build capacity. There was also an acknowledgement of limited resources, financial resources in quality assurance units, and the solution there, or the proposal or recommendation, was to have resource mobilization or enhanced resource mobilization. There was also a very strong submission on the need for visibility of quality assurance if it has to work. There was an acknowledgement that there is need to have training of leaders. Our colleagues lamented about how, for instance, we have very few vice chancellors in this audience. That all stems from the fact that there is need to have this information taken all the way up to the leaders. There was also a submission on having quality assurance in the African context and then modernizing it. There was also a submission relating to the need for impromptu checks in universities. This would enhance compliance and not only to wait for the regulators. It was also submitted that there is need to have the recommendations that this August House is making sent to the HEIs, and this would complement adherence to quality assurance. There was an observation on the presentation that was made over the lecturer's wellness and the issue of moonlighting and workload. That has also been captured by our rapporteurs. It was also submitted that there is need for feedback mechanism from stakeholders once graduates get into industry. The issue of data analytics being necessary for decision making in quality assurance was also underscored. There was also a submission that there is need to define this platform, which of course is the SAQAN Conference. Some delegates felt that delegates should be allowed to share their experiences and not necessarily formal research papers. That's not to say research papers are not necessary or formalized papers are not necessary, but some presentations can just border on the experiences that the distinguished delegates have had over the years, and this would enhance quality assurance. It was also said quality assurance should go as far as issues of time management, for instance, how we've handled the sessions, and we take that constructive criticism very well. surely in future we'll do better with time management and marry it with quality assurance. There's also the aspect for HEIs to enhance systems and change the culture of quality assurance, and this should permeate through every aspect or unit of the institutions. Just to assure the House that we've taken note of all the comments, submissions that were made, even if they've not been specifically mentioned, in the interest of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, team of rapporteurs. Let us please give them a... Thank you so much. Colleagues, we are now moving close to the end of this session, and on behalf of the Executive Committee, I will call on Dr. Green to give us the concluding remarks for this session. Of course, our conference was closed yesterday, and this is just a session. Dr. Green will give the concluding remarks, but we are informed that Dr. Makuku has an announcement of a training workshop. So after the concluding remarks of the session, please do not stand up yet. Let's hear from Dr. Makuku, because some of those trainings is what address issues that we are grappling with here. Thank you so much, Dr. Green.
Thank you very much, Dr. Temis, and thank you for the opportunity to just make some comments at the close. Any kind of views on this really be welcome. But I think this issue of network sustainability, the funding of the network, resourcing the network, so that we can provide the services that the countries and the organizations need is very essential. And then we should be asked a parallel question. What activities should the network be rolling out to justify the resources that are given to the network? So members are paying network registration fees. What should we be giving as a network in return to make that investment in the network actually useful for members? So what kind of activities would members like SAQAN to be rolling out in the region, more broadly than just the conference and now the journey? I like that idea of a SAQAN Quality Assurance Month as one activity that we can all galvanize around. But I'm sure there are much more. A third comment and reflection, and I think it ties in with one of the last speakers, is the form of the conferences, these conferences that we have. So what form should a conference take to increase its potential as a learning and knowledge sharing event? And I think, in addition to keynotes, in addition to conceptual discussion papers, in addition to research, empirical-based papers, we should be thinking about professional practice papers, giving space for sharing professional practice without fear of being contested in relation to whether it is an empirical study or not. We should have workshops, we could have panel presentations, we could have round tables. So I think just kind of having a more diverse approach to the actual conference event might then provide a platform for more people to come to the conversation in relation to quality assurance. And then I think closing then, some of the themes that I think jumped out as people were talking this morning and in relation to the next conference. I think quality assurance in Africa for Africa seemed to be quite an important theme. How are we thinking about quality assurance in Africa, in our context, for our students, for our institutions? Some of the sub-themes that could be related to that also jumped out: innovation and data-driven quality assurance in Africa, challenges and opportunities, academic integrity in the context of artificial intelligence. What does quality assurance mean in an African context? Building cultures of quality assurance. People spoke about the need for quality assurance as a whole institutional approach, from leadership right down to the practitioners that are implementing. So this notion of cultures of quality assurance. And then just maybe as a final remark, we are engaged in the region in quite a significant project on micro-credentials. And that project will come to a conclusion at the time of the next conference. So maybe the next conference could be an opportunity for kind of getting us together to explore the potential of micro-credentials in the Southern African context. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. There we have it. I think we can all see the hint for the next conference theme, and I think it's an exciting theme. After Dr. Makuku's message or announcement, we will hand over the chair to the Director of Ceremony for the overall conference.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can all tell the myriad of challenges that we still need to cater for at institutional level, at national level, regional and continental level. So it means there's a lot of work that we need to do in quality assurance. So for me, I'm the director for the Global Quality Assurance Association, which is formally registered in Ghana in 2023. And also formally registered with the Ministry of Gender there, because we are trying to pursue quality assurance practically and also in terms of capacity building, assessments and institutional assessments and evaluation for self-improvement. Now, just to look at one of the things before I talk about this workshop, we have the way we are doing the quality assurance. We all know that right now people are not well qualified, or trained to have a qualification which they can say, I'm now applying to be a quality assurance director or to be a quality assurance personnel. But we can't wait until such things are there. So now we carry out different workshops of the many issues which were raised here in terms of quality assurance. When we are coming here, we are international. So sometimes we do institutional events. For example, workshops in building the quality culture and also leadership being there. We now talk about the real base, because what I always note is that we are just floating somewhere. We need to go deep to build the foundation of quality assurance, which tallies with basically what a lot of you expressed, that we have the quality assurance mainly knowing accreditation, and that's one of the major problems. Many researchers have confirmed that we are mainly doing it for the accreditation bodies, and a voice was there to say, can we change? But the change comes with education and awareness. Sometimes we are bringing resources, we are trying to do things, but quality assurance will help us to make sure that these resources are well allocated, well used without any leakages and so on. So the problem is that broader component of quality assurance is not understood by the leaders. I don't want to overstate it. He has stated it, I've said it, many others have said it. And so regularly, we also have workshops. They can be international. Right now, we have one workshop in the last week of November in Ghana. when we are really talking about building that quality assurance unit, setting up the quality assurance unit, and how you can build the quality culture in the institution with practical examples and all those things. We also do things like resource mobilization. But what I've seen is, although we have the international workshops, when we do the institutional workshops, they become more effective because of the numbers, because of the leadership also who can't sometimes run away from it. So we have that threshold number of people in the institution with a common understanding and a common vision, so they can push the agenda together. So we also encourage you then to just check our website. Those who want information I can give you. But I think if possible, we can look forward to have your quality assurance personnel. And one of the key issues that was discussed also is that from the regulatory bodies and from the quality assurance agencies, these trainings are needed for the different work that they do. But why we are doing also policing in the institutions is somehow that lack of the holistic understanding and how we can work with the institutional community. These quality assurance units should also be audited. The way they audit directorates and what, they should also be audited. It should be a harmonious working relationship without anybody feeling that just because they are in this office, they feel superior. And then that's when issues start about quality assurance. They now want to check, what, do you know everything? Some of them do know, but because you are there and you sort of intimidate them, please let's leave the spirit of policing aside and work with the institutions and the communities better in order to make sure that quality assurance is a good name. And then the last one is for him, rewards and punishments, which our elderly gave. I will talk to you after this. Thank you very much.
You know what I think about Dr. Makuku? I think that if you woke her up in the middle of the night, you just say, Doc, she just say, quality assurances. Because it's in her blood, it's in her system. Let's give Dr. Makuku a big hand. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your dedication. And we have to be there at that workshop, right? Okay, fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Makuku's comments bring us to the end of the session, but before I allow for us to, go into our excursion, Doc, do you want to say something, Dr. Demas?
Thank you very much, Kunda. Colleagues, we have talked about everything we came to talk about here in Livingstone. Only what is left is really to again reiterate our great gratitude to the government of the Republic of Zambia, to the Higher Education Authority Zambia, all sponsors, all contributors, the performance we see they are waiting for us outside again, the presenters, delegates, everyone, thank you so much for making this conference really a reality. We very much appreciate, and we look forward to meeting you again in 2 weeks' time to our General Assembly, and again at that General Assembly we would have a broader or a detailed report of the conference, as well as a refined, might be a refined theme for the next conference, but surely the next venue for the next conference will also be announced at the General Assembly. So we look forward to see you again. Those who are from outside Livingstone, we are all traveling. Thank you very much, and we wish you safe travel as we return back home. Thank you.
Dr. Green, Dr. Ntoi, Dr. Demas, thank you very much. Let's give them a big hand. Beautiful closing session. And as we get ready to go into our excursion, are we ready? I can't hear you. Are we ready? Yes. I am so proud of you, government workers, especially. No jackets. You did it. I am so proud of you. So now, ladies and gentlemen, just 3 quick announcements. Just want to know, because I know that it's been quite a bit of a stretch for those of you that had to travel, then sit all day here, deliberating and giving us all that knowledge. Some of our guests have indicated that they would like to rest. So what I wanted to know is, especially for our brothers and sisters from outside Zambia, because right now you're my P1, the Zambians, there's a proverb in one of the languages which say, I don't know how to say it properly, in Bemba, which say, when visitors come, you ignore the old ones, you forget, then you forget that the new ones will go back. Then you have to be nice to the old ones again. But for now, my P1 are our brothers and sisters from outside the country, and I wanted to know how many are going, because there are some that want to rest. So how many will go to the Victoria Falls? Because from here, we're going to the Victoria Falls. I have the beautiful ladies waiting to count how many will go. So if you can, please, by the show of your hands, how many are going to the Victoria Falls? Not Zambia and Zimbabwe. First, my P1 brothers and sisters outside the country. Are we counting them? Are you counting properly? Come here to the front. So that 1, 2,